Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to have you here because today we're taking on a massive, sometimes intimidating topic, and we are going to completely demystify the banking system. We're going to pull back the curtain and trace the fascinating journey of your money. We'll start from a simple deposit at your local branch and go all the way up to the highly complex global investing machine run by AI and algorithms. It is a wild journey, and it's one that affects every single one of us every single day.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the bank vault myth. Second, fractional reserve banking explained. Third, interest, money's rent. Fourth, currency, trust, and credit. Fifth, inflation and the economy. And finally, number 6, the investing ecosystem. Section 1, the bank vault myth, a reality check on where your money goes.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think about it for a second. What do you actually picture when you walk into a bank and hand the teller your paycheck? Most of us like to imagine our money is taken into a back room, locked inside a giant steel safe, and maybe guarded by a fire-breathing dragon, right? You just expect it to sit there, patiently waiting for you. But honestly, the reality is completely different. The exact moment you hand over your cash, it's already gone. The bank is absolutely not a fortress. It's a financial matchmaker. It takes your deposit and immediately pairs it up with someone else out there who needs to borrow money.
Section 2, fractional reserve banking explained, how banks multiply money.
So, fractional reserve banking. This is the real engine behind how banks operate and how they literally multiply money to turn a profit. Let's trace the actual flow of a single deposit. Step 1, you deposit $1,000. Now, the bank knows that, realistically, you aren't going to come back tomorrow and ask for all of it. So, step 2, they only keep a fraction of it on hand. Let's say $100. Then comes step 3. They take the remaining $900 and lend it out to someone who, say, really wants to buy a jet ski. You provide the supply, the jet ski buyer brings the demand, and the bank acts as the matchmaker, taking a nice little cut right in the middle. But wait, what happens if everyone demands their money back at the exact same time? Well, that's what we call a bank run. And as we all saw in the 2008 crash, it can cause the entire system to just crumble. To prevent that kind of mass panic, we rely on this crucial number right here, $250,000. In the US, the government insures your deposits up to this amount. It's basically a safety net designed purely to maintain your trust in the system. Because they really don't want you keeping your life savings in a shoebox under your bed.
Section 3, interest, money's rent, the silent engine of wealth and death. We've talked about how banks move your money around, but how do they actually charge for that service? Well, I absolutely love this quote. Interest is money's way of charging rent. It exists to compensate people for the time their money spends in someone else's hands. When you borrow money from the bank, you're the one paying the rent. But when you save or lend money, you become the landlord. You're getting rewarded just for being patient. And this brilliantly illustrates how there are two main ways this rent is calculated. Simple interest is essentially a flat fee. It's like, thanks for playing, here's your cut. But compound interest, oh man, that's where things get wild. With compound interest, it's like your dollars have clones, and then those clones also start charging rent. If you have credit card debt, compound interest is a slow burn that can literally turn a $12 burrito into a $50 regret. But on the flip side, if you're investing, it's a total cheat code. Your money duplicates itself over time until you wake up one day and realize you've built some real wealth. Section 4, currency, trust, and credit. The shadowy algorithms of trust. Let's zoom out for a second and look at what this money even is in the first place and how the banking system decides who is trustworthy enough to borrow it. The weirdest part about currency is that it isn't actually real. It's entirely a social construct. Think about it. The absolute only difference between a dollar bill and a random stick you find in the woods is our collective agreement as a society that the dollar has value. That's it. The whole system runs on shared belief. Central banks have to carefully regulate how much of this currency exists, because if they print too much of it, that trust completely breaks down, and it basically turns into monopoly money. Now, if a bank is going to lend you their monopoly money, they definitely need to know you're good for it. Enter the credit score, which ranges from 300 to 850. It's this shadowy algorithm that lenders use to judge you. It breaks down like this. 35% of your score is purely your payment history. Do you pay on time? 30% is credit utilization, meaning how much of your available credit are you actually using? Then we have credit age sitting at 15% and credit mix and new credit both at 10%. Crazy enough, you can have zero debt and still have a terrible score if you just don't have a history. It feels like a rigged game sometimes, but if you learn these specific percentages, you can rig it right back in your favor.
Section 5. Inflation and the economy. When your money loses its punch.
So let's look at what happens on a macro level when the balance of money and goods gets thrown completely out of whack. A little bit of inflation, say 2% a year, is totally normal. But when it spikes, your money loses its punch. Why does that happen? Well, sometimes there's just way too much money chasing too few goods. If everybody suddenly wants a $500 TV, but there just aren't enough of them to go around, the business simply raises the price to $800. Or maybe supply chains get backed up, which raises the cost of production. How do we fix it? The central bank's policy response is to step in and raise interest rates. This intentionally makes borrowing a lot more expensive, which means people start spending less money. And as a result, the overheated economy cools off.
But what happens if the economy cools off a little too much? Well, then you get a recession. Think of a booming economy like a massive, super energetic party. Everyone's dancing, spending is incredibly high. A recession is basically when the lights suddenly flicker on, the music completely stops, and the DJ just starts playing sad lo-fi beats about corporate downsizing. It's the economic cycle's painful but honestly sometimes necessary reset button.
Section 6, the investing ecosystem, making your money work for you.
We're going to pivot now from everyday banking and basic economics to the much more advanced ecosystem of investing. This is where your money stops sitting around and actively starts working for you. Now, what's really interesting about this is how time is the ultimate wealth builder. Consider 3 investors who are all earning a 10% annual return. Billy starts at age 15, invests $3,000 a year for just 5 years, and then completely stops. Susan invests for 8 years. Kim starts at age 27 and dutifully invests every single year for 39 years. Fast forward to age 65, and Billy actually has the most money, $1.6 million, even though he contributed the least amount of cash overall. The takeaway here, giving compound growth decades to do its thing easily beats everything else.
But as you climb higher up the financial ladder, you find out something wild. The richest investors don't even care if the market goes up or down. Regular investors go long, meaning they buy a stock hoping the price rises. But professionals utilize a strategy called short selling. They actually borrow shares they don't even own, sell them high, wait for the price to drop, and then buy them back for cheap, pocketing the difference. Because of this, they can actually make an absolute fortune during a recession while everyone else is panicking. And that brings us to the very top of the investing food chain, quantitative finance. Quants do not rely on gut feelings. They rely on cold, hard math. They use AI and alternative data, like tracking credit card transactions or mobile phone geolocation, to predict market moves. They plot out risk and return using the classic bell curve, the normal distribution. Then they scale this up to insanely complex 500-dimensional models to balance massive portfolios based on how different stocks correlate with one another. And in high-frequency trading, they literally put their computers physically next to the stock exchange just to spot microsecond changes in supply and demand. This is how the modern financial engine operates on a massive global scale.
So we've gone from a simple, everyday deposit at a local bank all the way to AI-driven algorithms trading in microseconds. And it all leads us to this final, absolutely vital question. Is your money working for you, or is the bank putting your money to work for them? As we've learned today, wealth isn't really about buying flashy things just to look rich. True wealth is invisible. It's the options, the security, and the freedom your money gives you when you finally understand the rules of the financial matchmaker and start using those rules to your advantage. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.